Hi, my name is Sam Johnson and I am a voice teacher. Today I will be reacting to and analyzing Ariana Grande performing Moonlight with the Dangerous Woman Diaries. If you are interested in signing up for voice lessons with me or another wonderful teacher, go to vocalease.net and click sign up now.
The sun is setting in your right hand on my side, and the movie is playing, but we won't be watching tonight. Every look, every touch makes me wanna give you my heart.
She starts so flowy. I love how she uses her breath as just almost a totally different instrument, because there's obviously the breathy kind of quality in her voice, which is a huge contrast to what she sounds like when she gets up into her higher range and does more belty things. She really kind of utilizes that breathy tone quite a bit, which just means that there's a little part of the vocal folds that isn't coming together at the back of the vocal folds. So where they're not coming together, extra air is coming through and that air becomes audible. But so she's using that, but she's also using the sound of her breathing, which a lot of people teach against doing. Like, there are a lot of voice teachers who really want their students to use invisible breaths, inaudible breaths, because it implies that you have a more open throat. And you can kind of test this. If you do an ah with your tongue and your mouth, you just pretend like you're going to do an ah, but you don't actually make sound. And then you breathe in really rapidly. You kind of go with a and all of that sound is not the most open position. So it's not really, really helpful for a lot of people, versus if you have an E position and you aim for it to be more silent, that's going to start you in a coordination that is more open. And for a lot of people, that's going to make singing after the inhale a little bit easier. She is using a very audible inhale, but she's doing it in a very emotive way. And so as long as you know what you're getting away with and what you're risking by doing it, I think it's fine. They're all just colors. There's nothing inherently wrong with the breathy sound. Jeez. She sings so well. So everything up to the U, I would call a mix, because to me, mix is, it sounds like your full voice. It sounds like your chest voice, whatever term you want to do, but it goes higher to the point that you probably won't feel it in your chest. Because chest voice and head voice are terms that are descriptions of sensation. If you get stuck in one of those sensations, you get into some problems. And because humans generally seem to want there to be one right way to do a thing, when we feel a lot of sensation in one area when we're singing and we get praise for that, I think we kind of lock into the idea that that is what all singing should feel like. And so me, for example, I got a lot of praise for singing in my chest voice, for singing when I felt a lot of sensation in my chest. And then I would hear someone like Ariana sing and I'm like, oh, that sounds just like her chest voice. Therefore, she must feel it in her chest voice. Therefore, I must make these sounds and still have sensation in my chest voice, in my chest. And if I don't feel any of that, then I'm doing something wrong. Where what she's doing right there, I would be incredibly surprised if she is feeling anything in her chest. And yet it feels, or it sounds kind of like that quality. There is a difference in quality, but it sounds pretty much like her normal spoken voice, right? So anyway, she's doing that superbly. She's mixing really, really well. I think that the extra kind of breathiness that she used in the verse right before that stuff actually just encouraged her to not press when she got into the belty stuff, because it didn't go from I'm really breathy to I'm really pressed. It went from I'm really breathy to there's still breath flowing, but there's just not that little posterior gap where her vocal folds aren't coming together. And so it doesn't sound as breathy. She is so wonderful. But then she got to the ooh at the right after it, and the amount of vocal fold closure didn't sound like it changed much, but it sounded like it was headier. It sounded like a different quality. It was lighter. basically the sound change going from that beltier ah to the ooh. It's not like the exact same approach, but is it a mix? I would still say that's under a mix umbrella. And that's why mix is kind of confusing for a lot of people. I would love to know your opinion. Sound off in the comments. What is mix voice? And what is Ariana doing at this part? Yeah, she sounds a little bit more disconnected, especially when she comes back down. Like that note sounds like she's getting stuck in that headier kind of quality or that headier sort of feeling, which is not wrong. It's just what it is. So if you want to get that kind of sound and you like it, which obviously people do, maybe experiment with staying in your head voice and see how that changes the quality of it. This part sounds like it's more in her chest. Singing is weird, and teaching singing is a weird thing because a lot of times my body just feels things when I'm listening to other people sing that I'm like, oh yeah, that feels like chest voice. Obviously, I don't know exactly what she's feeling, but when she sings that part, there is a quality, this kind of core to it that my brain translates into, oh, that's chesty. There's some sort of buzz quality to it. However, it still has a lot of that kind of quality that she gets when she pulls her head voice all the way down. And so while I think that she probably feels those fairly differently, the sound of them sounds consistent enough that it doesn't suddenly sound like there's a totally different instrument. It just sounds like there are a lot of different colors within this one instrument.
Lips on my lip, makes me wanna give it my body. I'll be falling for you, baby. Stay right where you are.
So she did a little bit of that slide into it, which I think actually helped. I know I'm going to get crap for cutting her off right before this note. Leave that crap in the comments. Tell me off. Tell me how I messed everything up by pausing right now. I kind of like that slide as long as it doesn't pull chest up. And for her, it doesn't. For her, I think it just helps her start with a little bit of vocal fold closure, one, and then she's so skilled as she goes up to the top there that it just stretches and stretches and stretches. It doesn't stay in that thicker position that the vocal folds are in for chest voice. But I also heard a little bit of vocal fry, which is one of my favorite ways of onsetting because it's stylistically cool. A lot of times it just works better for people who press a lot. So people who do encourage or tend to pull chest voice a lot or yell a lot. The vocal fry kind of encourages less vocal fold closure. So it just helps you thin out a little bit more. It's really difficult to do vocal fry with too much pressure and with too much airflow. So it just kind of sets her up really well to go into that. Versus and just kind of starting right on it. She sounds great. Good. There's more of that whoop timbre. I like what she did there because she started in that whoop timbre, so the headier kind of sound, the and then she crescendoed into that more full voice. And moving back and forth between those is a tough thing to do for a lot of people. But I think that being able to do it lets your mixy stuff, lets your belty stuff be better most of the time, especially if you are a kind of person who tends to press. So I was unable to find my high belty range until I approached it with a very light ooh. I was on like a C5 and I went, and just figuring that out of like, oh wow, there is a lot more in common sensation-wise between ooh and that beltier sound than between that belty sound and my chest voice. That was a big paradigm shift because I kind of academically knew, oh no, the sensation doesn't have to be here, but I didn't believe it. I kind of knew that just we would lean into these sounds that are mixy, and it whatever. That's what that feels like, is leaning into that ooh and then opening the vowel to a vowel shape that would actually work for that much pressure and for that belty kind of sound, because you can't belt on a really small ooh. It just doesn't work. Like it's not gonna work for most people. Yeah, it's just not gonna work. So that kind of stuff, I'm not sure how chesty it would feel for her. And that's where these terms, chest voice and head voice, start falling apart, because why does it matter? It matters so that we can talk about our own voice with our voice teacher and with ourselves, so that we can find some sort of consistency and so that we can run experiments around it. It can start causing problems because I think it implies that we have to force certain things into these different places. What I heard with this, it's going to take a long time for me to totally change my terminology, because head voice is still a useful term sometimes. I'm trying to switch more to whoop timbre and yell timbre and mix timbre, which is not just like a specific part of your range, but is more just the whole thing, how you approach it. But what I'm hearing with this is more whoop timbre that she's carrying down, and the lowest note that she's really going to is the D4, which is, it's low enough that it starts distorting the sound quality if you don't let the sensation start moving into your chest, if you do keep it stuck in that whoopier timbre. And so it is a quieter sound and a less robust sound because of that physically. But I think that the better way to find that is to ask for the resultant sound, ask for the phrase dynamics, ask for where you want it to be more vibrant, ask for different pitches, rather than asking for head voice or chest voice. In general, I think that works better. However, I think that she probably is feeling it stay in her head a little bit more when she does that line. Gosh, so good. I stan. She's really good. She's really, really good. When she went to that E on an E, her mouth wasn't super open. Like, usually up around that part of someone's range, they'll need to start dropping their jaw closer to like an E in order to make it not flip. However, I think a lot of people just over open or under open, right? I mean, everyone's a little bit different. The right place is usually somewhere in the middle. For her, it's a lot smaller than I would expect, which is kind of cool because it kind of gives context for the rest of the phrase that she did, where that E started really, really robust and very small, and then she opens her mouth a lot on some words. She goes from like the E to a ah, and when she does that, there's a timbral shift. Even though she stays in a mixier sort of coordination, it starts sounding yellier, which is cool because yelling sounds emotional and yelling sounds good sometimes. The problem is when we get stuck in that pull chest yell, which is just by opening our mouth a lot as we start approaching places where it might turn over into our head, or we start getting louder as we approach those places, that doesn't feel good because that's like straight up yell timbre. I wouldn't call this yell timbre, but it does sound yellier. And that's a really cool place to be in. And the fact that she's able to go back and forth between that kind of more efficient home bass E closed place, really gathered, very acoustically intense, and the yellier thing, which is actually just slightly less efficient, all things considered. Like if she closed her mouth a little bit more, it would probably ring more, but we wouldn't hear that difference in tone that helps her tell the story better. So all of these things that she's doing, technically, they serve a purpose of telling a story better. And while I think a lot of people who are willing to watch a voice teacher reacts video to Ariana Grande and stick all this way through the video are probably kind of into vocal technique, I don't think that's the kind of stuff that actually got you guys involved in loving Ariana in the first place. For me, I love Ariana because on her first record, I thought it was sick and it made me feel really good listening to it. Like, I thought she told really good stories. I thought they were really wonderful to listen to. And I mean, vocal nerd side of me was like, man, she's singing really well. And it feels like a lot of pop stars aren't singing in as healthy of a way as she is right now. And so I really latched onto that. But I wasn't just evaluating her voice all the time that I'm listening to it of, oh, she's doing this vocally and this is how she's forming her vowel that makes her go to that sound. I can do that. That's what I do professionally, but I still listen to music a lot most of the time because I like music. I didn't get involved in singing in the first place because I was just so obsessed with the intricacies of it. I mean, that stuff made me stay in love with voice and choose to do it professionally, but I think it's really important for people who start nerding out on why things work to remember what got us into it in the first place. And then when we're actually performing, to remember that that's the stuff that most people care about. Most people care about she sounds good, she sounds on pitch, and she's telling good stories and it makes you feel good. It makes me feel good to listen to her. Or it maybe makes me feel sad to listen to her. And sometimes I want to feel sad or whatever. And she is telling a wonderful story. It just so happens that she is an incredible vocal technician. But I would be really surprised if she thinks about her technique like ever because she's just so good. I think she's probably at the point where anything she does in voice lessons is more like taking your car into the mechanic to get your oil changed, and then you don't think about what your oil is doing while you're driving the next 10,000 miles. You just drive. I think that's probably more what's happening with her, is she probably just checks in, makes sure everything's good, and then forgets about her voice and goes and tells wonderful stories. And that's why we connect to her, where a lot of people might be incredible technicians, but they're not telling as good of stories and they might not be as pretty as her. So we don't fall in love with it as much. So remember what the whole point of this is. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Tell me how I'm right, tell me how I'm wrong. Go to my website, vocalease.net, and click sign up for a lesson. To sign up for a lesson with me or another wonderful teacher, Mark or Vanessa. Go now. We're running out of spots. We're selling out quick. Right now.